I'm Ashley Lewis. I'm here with Kevin Holmes, the author of Daddy, I'm the Man That You Could Have Been. In our last video, if you caught it, we dove a little bit into him as an author, him as an investor, different assets of his life. But right now we're going to dig into his childhood and all the things that he spoke about in his book. So to get right into it, some people use adversity as a crutch, as a cripple, but it seems like you have done the opposite. So the adversity that you dealt with in your life, what do you feel like it did for you? Do you feel like it made you who you are today?
Yes, I think it did. I think struggling through school as a kid, and then as I was getting older, I think it made a big difference of feeling like you didn't have any options. So some people feel like they don't have options and they check out, right? They do nothing. Me being a father so young, I was a father at 16, that you read in the book, made me realize that my responsibility and accountability breeds responsibility. So that was important to me. That made me kind of step up to the plate. I embraced my responsibility. The other thing is, having my dad, I was very proud. I was a daddy's boy. And I was very proud that my dad and mom were together. But then as, I was coming up and then, witnessed my dad beating up my mother. And as a kid, traumatized by that. And so I wanted to be better than him. And my dad was on drugs and stuff like that. We discussed that in the book. And that's how the book came about, because I had my dad always talked about family, how family is so important. And, family's everything, and always watching out for your mother. So I just couldn't understand this man that says family is so important, how you jeopardize your family for drugs. And then I realized that doing the drugs, he wasn't the same person. So all of that kind of made me work that much harder and wanted to be a better man than him. And that's how the book came, Daddy, I'm the Man You Could Have Been.
So you did live in a two-parent household. Your mom was home, your dad was home most of the time, some of the time, as you said in the book. And a lot of people praise the fact that, staying together and staying in a two-parent household. But in your household, there was drug abuse, there was alcohol, there was domestic violence, all of these things that you went into detail in the book. Do you feel like it did some good for you seeing those things? Or do you feel like you would have been better off without your parents living in the same household? Was it beneficial for you, even though you had those negative things in your life, having your dad in the home, was it still beneficial for you?
In some parts it was, because some of my friends would be able to get away with murder. They can steal a bike and take it upstairs to their home.
Yeah.
They can stay out late. Even though my dad did what he did, and none of us is perfect, but he was a disciplinarian, and we knew not to play with him. When he told us to do something, we did it. We listened to my word. We was never disrespectful. So that part was very important, because if he wasn't there, God knows what the things I would have got myself into. I think his role being there made a big difference. Now, as far as the abuse of my mother and stuff, that was very traumatizing to me. And I talk about that in the book, when an incident happened and my dad kind of lost it. And that was, to this day, I remember like yesterday. So I think sometimes, we want them to stay together, and but sometimes it's not a good idea.
Yeah.
But a lot of times our mothers stay together for us, for the kids.
Right.
Her mother died when she was 13, and she never knew her father. So I knew that was important for her to make sure that she had a structure for her kids.
Right.
So, and I think, when I look back, my mom was very angry, because I think, she realized the sacrifice that she did for us, and maybe she shouldn't have. I think when she passed, I think she was very angry, and one of the things, my mom, I bought a house down in Charlotte, well, in Monroe, North Carolina, and I moved my dad in there. And my mom came in and she was like, "Oh, this is very nice." And I was with my dad, and she said, "But what pisses her off that he didn't do nothing for you." Her exact words, "He didn't do shit for you." And I said, "Ma, you always say that. He did a lot for me. He showed me what not to do."
Mm-hmm. That is something.
Yeah.
It really is. And you were a parent at 16.
Yes.
What was that like?
Oh, that was so scary. I always joke about to the fellas. I was like, the pull-out method don't work. You know, it was reckless. You know, we were young, and you know, it's one of those things that you're still finding who you are.
Right.
And I think you know, growing up in the project, you know, it says idle mind is the devil playground, right? So, you know, you just always finding yourself, and I talk about that in the book, you know, and I don't, you know, kind of when I talk about the things that my father done that I didn't appreciate, but he probably appreciates some of the things that I've done. So yeah. I'm not throwing stones when I live in a glass house, you know.
So when your father was interviewed in the book, and he was questioned about why he made the decisions that he made as a man, a lot of his responses alluded to the fact that he felt that he was a product of his environment, and his environment was what caused him to make those decisions. Do you feel like everyone is a product of their environment?
You don't have to be. I think it's a choice. You know, we all have choices. Some people can deal with peer pressure and some can't. I've been in a situation when guys are, you know, smoking weed, and I tried weed. I talk about it in the book, and I talk about it at a young age when I was introduced to cocaine. So I had choices that I had to make, and I felt like my dad, he was into health like I am, worked out, took care of himself, so he had a choice. So whatever was going on in his life, that he made the choice to try it, but that can happen to anybody. You know, so as you get older, you understand a role as a man and a father, you know, and it's tough, you know, just the responsibility every day, the responsibility of taking care of yourself and then taking on a family. I give no excuse. He could, I mean, he self-destructed himself, and he had to put his hands on my mother.
Right.
You know, so, but that's the choice, and he makes no qualms about. He felt he made a mistake, but he lived his life the way he wanted it.
Right. So you mentioned being a man and a father. What about, is there a difference between